You are not required to justify what you feel. Hearing that here, on the twin flame path or in any soul connection, should land like a permission slip, immediate and practical. I see you as you are today, with your fatigue, your hopes, and your scars. When reunion rushes in and fills you with sudden optimism, or when separation leaves a hollow that feels like a missing room, these reactions are not theatrical excess. They are direct signals from a system that has encountered something profoundly meaningful. Honoring those signals, allowing them to be witnessed rather than smoothed into tidy explanations for others, is essential work. It lets you register what is true for you in this moment, prevents the quiet creep of shame, and begins to steady the heart in a landscape of deep mirrors and intensified longing. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to Sacred Essence Love. I'm Sophia. This channel is a quiet, uncompromising space for people walking intimate, intense, spiritual relational paths, especially those on the twin flame journey. Here you will not find quick fixes or spiritual platitudes. You will find careful reflections that bridge the psychological, the somatic, and the spiritual. You'll hear explanations that help translate what your body and heart are telling you. You'll be invited to be witnessed rather than advised, to see the mechanics beneath your reaction instead of being shamed for having one. If you are searching for clarity about how longing, grief, and devotion show up in the nervous system and in the soul, this is the place. Come close in your mind and let this be a room where your heart can land. Sometimes the day opens and there's a persistent ache you can't locate. Sometimes a small gesture, a silence, a turned head, a familiar phrase detonates a memory that makes your stomach knot. Sometimes the feeling is a slow, dull pressure. Sometimes it is a sharp, incandescent grief. In all those textures, know this: you are not required to justify what you feel. Saying that again is not avoiding responsibility. It is issuing a basic permission. Feelings arrive as information. They are not verdicts on your worth. To understand why that permission matters, consider how emotion arises. At the most immediate level, your body speaks first. The nervous system registers threat and safety through tone, posture, breath, and muscle tension. Before you can narrate a reason, the body already knows. Emotion is the brain's shorthand, a rapid assignment of importance so you can respond. When your environment insists you explain or minimize those responses, the system learns to censor itself. Over time, that censorship becomes a pattern. You learn to perform calm instead of being calm. You learn to supply tidy explanations where complexity lives. That cost is subtle but profound. It is the slow erosion of intimacy with yourself. Attachment history is another structural force. Early relational templates teach the nervous system what to expect from closeness. If early care was inconsistent, your system learned to expect absence and to react accordingly. If vulnerability was punished, you learned to armor. These patterns are not moral indictments, they are survival logic. When someone mirrors an old wound on the twin flame path, the response can be outsized because it is an echo of a pattern that originally protected you. Understanding that gives you vantage. The intensity becomes less a mystery and more a clue about what part of you is speaking. Spiritually, the twin flame frame intensifies meaning. When a relationship is read as a soul contract or a sacred mirror, ordinary relational ruptures carry expanded symbolism. Separation can feel like spiritual exile. Reunion can feel like initiation. That spiritual amplification is powerful, but it also complicates the landscape. Longing can be misread as deficiency. Reunion can be misread as completion. The subtle, necessary distinction is this: encountering the sacred in another does not erase human contingency. The spiritual lens deepens experience but does not absolve the need for clear-eyed care, boundaries, and mutual responsibility. There are confusions we must name clearly. Feeling deeply is not a moral failing. It does not mean you are spiritually immature, nor does it mean you are inherently broken. Equally, devotion is not a license for self-erasure. Depth of feeling does not require you to accept harm in the name of growth. Intensity is not automatically pathology. It is often proportional to the relational imprint that person has on your system. Professional and spiritual support can be of help when emotion consistently dissolves daily functioning or when harm is present. But intense feeling alone is more often a marker of imprint, not of illness. Shame frequently arrives as a companion to deep feeling. Shame says your pain proves you are less. It colors experience with a moral hue and convinces you to hide. The psychological work here is to differentiate shame from responsibility. You may be responsible for how you act in moments of hurt. You are not morally condemned for being wounded. Spiritually, confusing weakness with lack misunderstands the role of suffering on a path. Suffering does not prove spiritual failure. Suffering often indicates that change is underway. The key is to witness the wound without allowing it to become the whole story of who you are. Projection is another mechanism that complicates relational clarity. Old expectations, unmet needs, and prior hurts can be projected onto a present partner. This phenomenon doesn't excuse bad behavior, but it does clarify why triggers often feel exaggerated. We are not only responding to the present, we are responding to a history that is still active. Recognizing projection is a tool. It helps you distinguish what belongs primarily to your internal map and what is genuinely the other's responsibility. There is also a spiritual misconception worth correcting. Surrender is not synonymous with passive resignation. True surrender is an internal realignment that acknowledges limits of control. It does not mean tolerating abuse or neglect. On intimate, spiritually charged paths, the temptation is to spiritualize keeping the connection at any cost. Discernment here is vital. Authentic surrender involves releasing the illusion you can coerce outcomes while simultaneously upholding your dignity and safety. Grief on this path is not only about endings of people, it is about the endings of expectations, images of the future, and identities once held. Grief asks you to reassemble identity from the pieces that remain. That process is initiation, often disorienting, sometimes flattening, but potentially fertile. To call grief a teacher is not to romanticize pain, it is to acknowledge that loss reshapes what you can become. The spiritual task is to steward that reshaping with gentleness, not to demand accelerated transformation. It is also important to address the myth that constant introspection equals spiritual progress. Rumination can masquerade as spiritual diligence. Dwelling endlessly in the same narrative loop is rarely generative. Real inner work often shows up as clearer boundaries, steadier attention, and the capacity to hold paradox without collapsing. Depth is demonstrated less by the volume of feeling and more by the growing ability to speak truth compassionately and to choose integrity over drama. Finally, tenderness needs protection. Love that demands suffering as proof of commitment is not healthy devotion. It is a pathology dressed in romantic language. Being on a soulful path does not require you to normalize harm. Spiritual maturity includes refusing to be weaponized by another's need for control. Boundaries are not antagonistic to depth. They are a necessary container for genuine intimacy to arise. You are learning a difficult literacy, the translation of raw affect into meaning that serves you rather than diminishes you. Translation does not silence the emotion. It converts it into intelligible information that can guide wise action. This is not a quick conversion. It is a slow apprenticeship in being human, staying with the ache without letting it become the master of your days. As we close, hold again the sentence that began us. You are not required to justify what you feel. Let it act as a small, steady lamp within you. Permission to be untidy, complexity to hold, and tenderness to receive. That permission does not remove accountability for your actions, but it removes the needless burden of proving your inner life to others before you are given space. If this landed for you, save this video or share it so another person on the pathway might be reminded they are seen. Subscribe to Sacred Essence Love for more deep reflections that seek to explain the mechanics of heart, mind, and soul without flattening the lived reality. Thank you for letting me sit with you today and go gently with your heart.